On in San Francisco for the man known as the Zodiac Killer.
There could be a serial killer in Chicago.
The Oakland County child killer.
Phantom Killer.
Frankfurt slasher.
4 children have now been murdered.
Has killed 5 and says he's going to kill again.
15 brutally murdered young women.
The pattern is the same.
One by one,
The death count started rising.
A man in a mask robbed, tied, and stabbed them.
Strangled, stuffed in burlap bags.
It is highly unlikely that these women were murdered by separate men.
Where will the killer strike next?
police can't answer who or why.
This is Dorothy with the Beaumont Police Department. Okay, ma'am, what's going on?
Our daughter has been murdered. Okay, what's happened, ma'am? We came over here and found her. She's handcuffed. She's been tortured. Please send someone. We're sending someone, ma'am.
There's some news from all around Texas and Beaumont. Authorities search for suspects in connection with the brutal murder of a 29-year-old elementary school teacher. Mary Edwards apparently drowned in her bathtub.
Her parents finding her like that was just so distressing.
She's been murdered!
Good evening, everyone. Welcome to 12 Gage Investigative Podcast. Get strapped in. Let's do this. Let's ride.
Whoa, good evening, everyone. My name is 12 Gage, and welcome to my channel, 12 Gage Investigative Podcast. Tonight, I'm going to show you a reboot that is one of my favorites, and it has been shown multiple times on here, but it never loses its age. I promise you that. It's an all-star panel of creators that at one point were deep diving into the Idaho 4 case. And we discussed blood and blood evidence. So I wanted to get on here and I wanted to talk about this because blood evidence is important, not only in that case, but in a lot of cases. Because blood seems to be a substantiated marker for a lot of people when it comes to viewing true crime. It's either not clear enough for them, or there's no way that this could happen because it was too much, it was too bloody of a scene. And I'm only going on the things that I've heard throughout time, so I do want to present this video. I want to give the creators credit. You know, a couple of them are no longer streaming that I know of. Actually, all of them I don't think are streaming. But this is called The 8-Hour Gap Exposed. And this is one of my favorite videos. It really is. I guess mostly because I didn't have to talk a lot in it. And there was a lot of individuals that, you know, they were in the chat and they were presenting their opinions. So let's go ahead and go on and get the video started, shall we? 2 hours and 48 minutes. I believe there's some parts of this video that I will have to fast forward because I think YouTube flagged it for content. But regardless, we will see. And we will go. Here we go.
But the biggest thing is we agree to disagree in here, and please keep the chat on topic on what the panel is talking about, because we don't want to be presenting all this stuff up here and you are talking about French fries and Whoppers, you know, because it's kind of what the point? Why are we up here if we're going to talk about stuff that you guys are talking about, Whoppers and French fries or something like that? Okay, so y'all please stay on topic, and without further ado, I'm going to bring my panel guest up here, and they're going to give you a little bit of insight on themselves, and then we're going to start the show. Here's guest number 1. Guest number 2. Guest number 3. All right. So who'd like to begin? Who'd like to tell the chat a little bit about themselves?
I think the most beautiful should go first. So you go first, Gage.
No, I'm kidding. Swamp Rose, you go first.
Oh, that was so sweet. Well, thank you for having me on panel tonight. My name is Swamp Rose, or Kiki for those who haven't met me. I have a channel here on YouTube and a true crime podcast, and I cover the case against Bryan Kohberger in the Idaho 4. So, yeah, and I just want to thank you for having me on again today, 12.
You're very welcome. Glad you're here. Nina?
Oh, that would be me. Hey, I'm Nina, or warning label Nina, because I come with a warning label. I have a new channel, trying to get it up and going. It's warning label discussions, or I think you can look it up by warning label Nina. Who knows? I cover anything. Mostly, I mean, I can say that right now it's mostly Idaho 4. So I just got finished covering Chris Tapp with the Angie Dodge murders, but other than that, my channel's new and I'm just opinionated.
Okay. Thank you so much. Crime Sleuthing.
Hi, everybody. I'm Crime Sleuthing. I need a warning label. Yeah, Nina, I need to follow you if I'm not following you on your new one. But yeah, I love this channel and the environment over here. I do a little bit of true crime, a little bit of this, a little bit of that. My heart has always belonged to Quentin Simon and the Idaho 4 case. So.
All right. We're happy that each and every one over here. And I am the man on the panel. My name is 12 Gage, and this is my channel, 12 Gage Investigative. Thank you so much for being here. All of my panel guests, you know, it's taken a lot of money to persuade these women to get up here with me tonight. So, you know, I broke the bank on this one, so I hope y'all enjoy it. No, I'm just kidding.
You know, this has a lot of integrity with these women because they gave their understanding of what they were talking about, and they didn't sugarcoat it. They didn't try to be politically correct. They didn't speak outside the realm of expertise because all three of them had been researching this for a long time. And that's one of the reasons that I wanted them on the panel, because they all had a lot of insight on this case. And one thing I believe that people, when they still talk about this case, I don't believe it's more about talking about the case other than rehashing the things that they know, rather than to show a new audience what can happen in future crimes. Because, you know, this Idaho 4 or these student murders, unfortunately, is not going to be the last time we discuss this. I'm not naive enough to believe that. And I know that history does repeat itself, so it's just a matter of time. So that's why I really respect these women on the panel for their integrity, their ability to discuss openly without trying to be politically correct. So if y'all listen in the future, each one of you, thank you so much for being on this panel.
But I hope that y'all enjoy the show tonight. What we're going to do is we're going to go creator by creator, and they're going to show you a little bit about their expertise on the case as far as what they've researched and what they've found. And then we're going to go to the other creator and then to the other creator. That way we don't really start talking all over each other and we're all over the place. And, you know, that way we can keep some kind of balance in the chat and as well as on the panel. We are going to be talking about the 8-hour gap and more stuff regarding the Idaho 4 case. Have y'all ever heard of that case? It's kind of new. I don't know if y'all have heard about that or not.
Idaho 4.
I don't know. It's kind of new. I don't know. So which one of you ladies would like to begin with your your presentation.
I'm super interested to hear from Swamp Rose again.
Okay, Swamp, you want to
do the same
start?
order.
Well, I didn't, I guess if I'm just to start somewhere, I definitely think that the 8-hour time delay is what brought so much intrigue into this case. And it's the first thing that people want to know about when they learn about this case. I mean, I don't really know where to begin. I definitely have questions about not only the delay in the 8 hours, but just the lack of distress call in general from the moment of the crime happening. And my channel has always been open to many speculations about that because it's such an unknown. And also our First Amendment rights have been kind of stifled in that regard, not just in terms of the gag order, but the lack of transparency with the 911 call, like unable to obtain a transcript or any FOIA requests. So anyway, I've always thought about when it comes to the lack of distress call, I've always kind of proposed possibly some of Michael Aldario's theories about a stingray or some sort of cell phone tower interceptor. But anyway, I guess I'll start the conversation there.
Okay, very good. Go ahead. If you have anything that you want to pull up on the background, just let me know when you pull it up, and then you can start presenting that.
Sure, definitely.
Like I was telling the ladies,
and when we started this panel, when we were discussing this, that's why I enjoyed that we had multitudes of different variations. We didn't just have one person agree with the other person, or that we all had to be in unison, in agreement to this case. Because as you heard Swamp Rose talking there, she said she believed that, at one point, stingrays could have been used to disable the cell phones, which that had been a theory that had been out there. And it's not one of those theories that goes without reference. There's factual stuff on stingrays. So it wasn't just something that was being discussed without factual background, because she did a lot of videos on that and she discussed that on her channel. So it was very interesting to learn about stingrays. And that's one thing I believe that people forget about reviewing cases and learning about them. The knowledge that you gain from the factual information, not only about maneuvers and ways to actually understand how the police, the FBI, other agencies utilize their tools, but that you can look outside the box. Let's continue on.
Behind the scenes, I was telling them that I really didn't bring anything to talk about tonight. I'm just going to kind of wing it, if I'm asked for my opinion or whatever. I'm just going to wing it. I didn't bring any material. I figured, 3 people with a lot of material would be plenty, So.
Well, I mean, when it comes to stingray, if it is something that we want to continue the discussion further, I definitely have little videos on it, Michael Adario's words on it. So, definitely I can bring that to the table if you want to. But
yeah, why don't we just start with introducing what a stingray is to the audience and how you feel that had something to do with the 8-hour delay.
Okay.
Okay.
All right. So like I was saying, when we talk about the 8-hour delay, we're talking about the delay in the 911 call. So I've also talked about the lack of distress call, even at the scene. And of course, everything I say is just complete speculation, but it is kind of curious. You think all of these young adults with their cell phones, couldn't somebody have asked like their cell phone assistant to call 911 or something along those lines? Not just one of them couldn't do that, but all 4 and technically all 6 failed to do so. Now, we know very little about the interaction or the forensic downloads of the roommates as well. What's interesting is when you think about the letter that Steve Gonsalves wrote attorney Andrew Myers that talked about how Kaylee's phone went offline at 2:56. And then even other things in the PCA, like Bryan Kohberger's phone, which we don't know exactly what's going on. The defense has a different story than the prosecution, but his cell phone going offline around the same time. I mean, it just brings up the theory stemmed from, and I think originally I saw this on Crime Circus. There are a lot of places on Google Maps that are kind of blurred out. And Michael Audario is a professional photographer, and he went out there and he started studying some of these areas, and they looked as if they might have had something removed from them. And so there's a whole idea that possibly because of that area, maybe there was some sort of cell phone interceptor. And what that is it's basically a device. A lot of people nickname them stingrays, and they were originally designed in Iraq to intercept IEDs, so inner explosive devices. I don't know what the abbreviation is, but these explosive devices that are set off by cell phones. And so originally they were created to do that, but now governments, local governments, and certain law enforcement offices, through different means, can use these things, and they mimic a cell phone tower. So anything you do, instead of going to the cell tower first, goes through the stingray. One of the problems with these stingrays is they're notorious for dropping distress calls, to the point where there has been lawsuits. And there's like a well-known lawsuit out of New York where somebody tries to dial 911 and the call gets dropped. So, I mean, I don't know if this plays a role, but when we talk about speculating and we talk about such a mysterious time delay, I can't help but bring that up. And one last thing I will leave you with, when Michael Audario was out there, and I interviewed him on my channel, that's where I'm getting this information. When he went out there to document, because he is a victim's advocate, he's worked for other victims in the past. He actually went out to go take photographs, and he of like where the iconic shoe line was, and they actually had gone out and tightened all the wires, and a lot of things had changed from the original photographs. I'll leave it at that. But I don't know.
Okay.
I hope I explained it.
I have a question for you, Swamp, or Kiki. During this cell phone drop, since we're talking about the 8-hour gap, let's kind of all get on the same page as far as when the 8 hours starts for the crime. Do you all believe that the 8 hours started at what time? 4:23? Would that have been the 8 hour from 4:23 to 11:56?
Probably about 4:17.
Okay, so that's the time frame we're talking about, right? So at what time, Kiki, would you think that those stingrays were being implemented?
Guess what?
You're muted, Kiki.
Yes.
Wouldn't be a show with Swamp Rose if I didn't mute myself. Right. So the thing is that you could have tons of cell phone communication and no problems whatsoever. Or you could have problems. I mean, they do cause issues. There's like a whole list of 10 different symptoms if your phone's using them. But truly, the problem arises when somebody calls 911 or texts 911 or does any communication, because there's something about the feature of having that 911 call that causes it to be dropped. So I don't know. I'm just saying, if a distress call was put out, it could have been dropped.
And listening to her say that right now, like I was on the panel, right? And I was listening, and I played this video about 3 times since. And listening to what she's saying, you know what? It makes a lot of sense. It really does. At that point, maybe I wasn't as open-minded as I should have been, but, just listening to what she was saying, could a stingray, could whoever, which we know is Bryan now, but at that point, could they have utilized the stingray to disable any of the cell phones in the house to keep people from calling 911? That was a big possibility. And I think that's what she's getting to, not trying to put words in her mouth or anything, but I believe that that's what she's trying to show here. And at that point, I don't think any of us are probably, I'm not going to speak for anybody else but myself, but I don't think I was very open-minded to that concept because I didn't really understand how the stingray played a role. But now that I actually got a chance to step out of myself and listen, I do understand what she's trying to talk about. And I do understand what she was meaning regarding the stingray going, and whoever could have been involved could have utilized this instrument to disable the phones in the house to keep a distress call from coming. Of course, that makes sense now. But at that point in time, I wasn't there. I wasn't there. Great job, Swamp.
Speculation.
Okay.
Speculation.
Okay, so you're kind of going along the line that if somebody did call 911 in that house during any of the time, whether it be during the crime or after the crime, the call could have been dropped because of these stingrays. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, or maybe there wasn't an 8-hour time delay. I'm not saying from one of the surviving roommates, but maybe 911 was called that night at some point and both dropped.
Okay. I can dig that. What do y'all think, Crime Sleuth and Nina? Do y'all have any feedback for Kiki? I mean, any positive feedback on this?
I'm positive I know nothing about stingrays.
Complicated.
Okay.
That's what I was gonna say.
Yeah, they are pretty complex. I mean, it's a great theory, and I've seen some of Kiki's videos on that, and it is complex. But we can't act like it doesn't happen. Anything's possible in this crime. Is there anything else that you'd like to present, Kiki, or do you want to come back and?
Yeah, I mean, I have tons to say on the subject. I guess I'm just, I just want to start the conversation with that. I'll talk about anything.
Okay.
You guys want me.
Okay. Well, let's go with Nina since she's to the left of you, and we'll let Nina present a little bit, and then we'll let Crime Sleuth, and then we'll come back to you if that's okay.
Sounds great.
Okay, Nina.
Okay. I have the unpopular opinion that the 8 hours is totally innocent and can be explained.
Okay.
Don't shoot me off the pen.
No, we all agree to disagree up here. It's cool. Go ahead.
I'm with you, Nina.
I think that with the fight that happened and everything, that Bethany and Dylan thought that it had continued over to the house, and that they heard the rummaging of furniture and stuff like that, but honestly thought that it was a fight. And I think that once the perpetrator left, that Dylan ran downstairs and got in bed with Bethany, because in the PCA, I won't say PCA, I will say Exhibit A, because I do believe that the PCA is sealed and we have an Exhibit A. But I think that in the Exhibit A, it says that Dylan originally went to bed in her bed. And you don't have an originally unless something changes.
Okay.
So she originally went to bed in her room, but then went downstairs, got in the bed with Bethany because they thought the fight was over. The frat guys had left. And one of them woke up the next morning and was like, well, dang, something's wrong. And that's my opening. Next.
So that's an interesting theory that Nina had, because she talked about that way before the documents were even dropped, that did basically tell us and tell the world that Dylan did go downstairs after the crime happened. So kudos to Nina for that, and also as you're listening, you're hearing different variations of people's thought process, which is awesome. Is it wrong? Is it right? The only person that it should matter to is the person who's presenting the information, because you know what? They're the ones who conform that belief process. It isn't. I believe in this case, in cases that'll go on after this, long after, and if we ever get a repeat of this case or much worse, I believe that people will really ask themselves, were we narrow-minded in our thought process? Because, you know, it had been stated that police were narrow-minded. They pigeonholed their thought process on one suspect. But at the same time, isn't that what people's belief systems are telling themselves most of the time now? And what you hear? It had to be this person. It had to be that person. This person is this person is that, blah, blah, blah. They were involved, all this stuff. So if somebody is presumed innocent until guilt is presented, wouldn't that go all the way around the circle? Wouldn't you presume other people innocent until proven guilty? Because I know at the very beginning of this case, that was the biggest battle cry. Bryan's innocent until he goes to court, until he's proven guilty. He's not guilty until, proven guilty. That was the battle cry. And then other people started popping up. And it's interesting how Bryan could have been presumed innocent, but these other individuals were shady. They had corruption. They were involved somehow. This, that, and the other. They weren't given the benefit of the doubt, and they still aren't given the benefit of the doubt. But I'm not showing this to rehash past events. I'm showing this for future events in the future, once we get to the blood evidence part of it. But I want people to understand that, whenever you're thinking about something, and Cherie spoke of it last night, she said, just because somebody is not a suspect today does not mean that if something is gathered later on to present them in a different light, then ultimately they can become a suspect. And that's something that I had forgotten to ever talk about. And I'm glad that she spoke on that because it is so true. So a lot of this stuff that we're hearing on this panel is spot on because it's their belief system, it's their thoughts. They're not trying to convince anybody, and they're not trying to run from what they want the audience to hear. Here we go.
Well, do you want to talk about any of these photos that you sent me? I mean, I could put those on the channel.
I would like to address that because I know that so many people talk about that they spent all this time cleaning up the crime scene. So I put out a video, sort of not debunking it. I don't want to say that, but I wanted people to understand how difficult it is to clean up a crime scene. I'm actually trying to put together an interview with a guy. He owns a crime scene cleaning company. That's what his company does. And I talked to him extensively this week. And, it doesn't matter. I mean, there's before and after pictures where the room looks completely, pristine, cleaned and everything. And then they shine the black light and there it is. You can see the rag marks. You can see the mop marks, and no matter how good of a job somebody does, the luminol, the amino black, is it amino black amino, whatever. But, and then I think there's Blue Star, there's different kinds, but no matter what they use, it picks it up. I don't care if it's just a speck, it picks it up.
Okay, so this is this is not a photo from the Idaho Poorhouse.
No, none of these.
I don't want to start any rumors. I don't want to start any.
They're only examples.
Yeah, these are just examples, okay? Let me go ahead and put that on a banner because you know how things go, right? Can you go ahead and give us a little bit about what you see on this panel?
Well, that one, of course, is from a crime scene where, you can tell it's a footprint, and that's the thing about it is, there's some in there of footprints. There's some in there of handprints. There's a bathroom picture that's a before and after that the bathroom is completely clean, completely. And then the after.
What's interesting about this photo that Nina is talking about is we understand, or I hope that people do understand, that these footprints are not visible to the naked eye. They were not visible. They were latent, possibly, or they were blood footprints that were cleaned up, possibly. But as you notice, they're not smeared. And Nina's going to explain this a lot better than I'm doing right now because she's the one that constructed this video. But I want people to know, just because you see the footprints under the light does not necessarily mean that you can see them with the naked eye. And as I'm looking at these right now, there's one thing to be understanding of what you're looking at, but there's another thing to say, is that really a footprint? I don't see anything. So if you don't see anything, is that because you don't want to see it? Or because in your mind, you've already made up your mind, which you have a confirmation bias on this is what you want it to be. So let's go on with what it says.
After picture, it shows everything that they missed. And so, just because you think that it's clean, it doesn't, there's no way. It gets in the crevices. It gets in the grout. Any kind of porous, it can stay there forever.
Well, when I've done research on this, because I've had videos on this in my library, and I don't know if you've been in the live to see it. When they're talking about these latent prints like this, they're not clear to the naked eye. So people are always asking in some of the chats that I've been in and some of the panels, well, how did they miss the latent shoe print? How did they miss it the first time around? How did they not pick it up until the second time around? That sounds suspicious. So is this kind of what you're talking about at the moment?
Yes. I mean, because what happens is, when you see the before and afters, if I'm the person doing it, then I think, oh man, I got it all, and then they come in with that dad blame ultraviolet light and it's like, oh, well, I'm screwed, because there's no, you're talking what, 20, 21-year-old, I call them kids because I'm 55. So they're a kid to me. Right. There's the bathroom. You can tell that it looks totally good. And then there it is.
I love this example because I've shown Nina pictures that I had found as well, and we kind of met in the middle with this because she showed me these pictures. I was like, wow, that is exactly what I was looking at also. So how many photos in the house did we see the bathroom photos like this? It looked clean, right? On the left, you don't see any blood. You don't see any proteins. You don't see anything on the left side. And as I'm talking about it right now, I could hear people say, well, that doesn't mean anything. It could have been cleaned up. But look on the right side, same area, and it lights up like a Christmas tree. So you're telling me just because you can't see it on the left, then you're going to stick with your original thought process, even if you're shown something different. It would have been nice to be able to see in the dark what they did find, because I believe then people would actually really understand how violent of a crime it really was, rather than to look on the left side and say, well, this is just someone's bathroom. There could have been blood. How could the blood have been transferred there? Well, look at the one on the right. How did all that stuff get there? How come you can't see it on the left? This is an awesome presentation, by the way, by these ladies.
I mean, and you know, so you're going to call a bunch of frat guys over, and they're going to come over with their mop and water, even bleach. I mean, they did it with hydrogen peroxide. They did it with bleach. They did it with all kinds of anything, any kind of cleaning solution you could get, you know. And with the experiments, I mean, one of the experiments that I read was 222 pages.
Wow.
And
so hold on, Nina. Hold on. One of the things that I want to talk about right quick is something that is a big topic of debate, and that is the blood that's on the ping pong table that is wet. And people swear up and down that that was evidence of a cleanup. But looking at these two photos right here, if the left side, if you don't see anything, and then you see it under the light, it looks like this. You don't believe that on that ping pong table, they put this light on that ping pong table would not have lit up like this? Even though you did see the ping pong table not really having anything on it, but then you put the ultraviolet light on that ping pong table, I am almost certain, 100%, that it could have looked like this on the right-hand side. Is that evidence of a cleanup, or is that just the scene of a crime? And that's what you have, you know, you must ask yourself, if you're really looking for answers, if you're really looking for understanding, you're not implementing your own thought process or your own question. It's okay to have questions, but when you say there's no doubt that this happened here or this happened there because of this, that's interjecting your own self in the investigation. So, once again, on the left, totally clean. On the right, under the ultraviolet light, the meter black, the blue, this is what you see. So you really don't see a clean bathroom as most people think. What did those bathrooms look like when they actually did this in those bathrooms that we saw in the photos that people swear up and down were clean? Were they really?
I mean, that's the kind of detail. And I mean, it told, you know, okay, we're using this cleaner. Okay, we're using this, and this, you know. And I didn't figure I'm probably one of the only people that would ever read 222 pages, but I put the link in there anyway. I mean, but, you know, you can never get it clean enough. And especially in 8 hours. I mean, 8 hours wouldn't be enough to clean up that. And the thing about it is, what are you cleaning up? They've already said that the crime scene was, you know, just the worst thing they'd ever seen, you know. So, I mean, what would be the sense in cleaning it up? What would be the sense in, you know, mopping and all that? I mean, you left the bedrooms. I mean.
Right. Well, as we see in this photo, like on the, if you're watching this on a TV or on a phone, this would be the left-hand side where the bathroom is totally lit up and you can't see any blood. You can't see any on the floor. You can't see any on the toilet, in the bathtub. You can't see droplets on the tile. And then you turn the light off, you get the luminol, you get the amino black, you get the black light, and look how it lights up. It just, I mean, somebody has cleaned up a lot of blood in that area. And to the naked eye, you could walk in and be like, oh, nothing happened here. And then here on the right side, you definitely see something happened. I like this next photo too. Whoa.
Yeah, that one's
what is that?
That's creepy.
Yeah, that was pretty wicked looking. I think that's one of the pictures I used on my thumbnail.
What is
That
that?
needs to go in an intro
It's,
video or
actually,
something.
it's a female shirt.
Oh, I was like,
See the long sleeves and everything.
give me a heads up.
She put it through the washing machine and everything, thinking that all the blood was out.
No
And
way.
then they lit it up.
I love that point right there too, because many killers, they believe that, if I wash this in the washer, then it's gonna erase the blood material. So think back on the pictures that we saw. Think back on the pictures we saw in this case. The purple comforter. To the naked eye, you didn't see anything, right? They didn't show you any kind of blood evidence on that, right? Doesn't mean that under that light it didn't glow like that. Like I always say, it's not what you believe, it's what you can prove. And just because it hasn't been released yet does not mean that it didn't happen. I'm not trying to push a narrative or any of that crap that people try to say whenever you disagree with what they agree with. I'm just simply saying that think about the hoodie that people swear up and down is full of blood, right? You don't think that they did this test on that? You don't think that they can identify the difference between fresh blood and blood that's been in there long enough that there's no more protein or lipids or any of that stuff in it? You don't believe that seasoned investigators can actually see more than we can see on a photograph or a video? I hope that you do, but if you don't, that's you. You know what I mean? But like Nina described in this photo, this shirt had been washed, trying to get the blood off of it. And still, under the light, under the spray, you can still see where blood was present. So if that didn't sway you in any direction other than to know about the investigative process, I don't know what will. Obviously, you just want to see and hear what you want to see and hear. Because I can tell you, if people are watching this that have a difference of opinion, in their mind, they're saying, that's bullshit. He's an idiot. He doesn't know what he's talking about. Why is he talking like that? Why is he saying that stuff? He doesn't know that, that's bullshit. That's, they didn't do this. They didn't do that. Well, guess what? I didn't make this up. I didn't put this presentation up. This is not mine. This is Nina's. And she's presenting it well. Because if you look at this, it's clearly, you can see what you see when you're investigating a crime.
Okay, so she washed this.
Yes.
And even after it was washed, you could still see the blood and.
Yep.
Because I don't believe that people understand that when blood or any kind of liquid is secreted from the body, the proteins and the lipids and everything coagulate together. So it's not like if you wipe it away, there's still the residue of the coagulation left on the surface. So I'm not trying to take over your presentation, Nina. Tell me to shut up.
No, I'm not like that.
Shut up, Gage. God.
I'm liking these. Go ahead and explain this one, please.
That was pretty wicked too.
Wow.
Crime Sleuthing, Swamp, what do y'all think about these photos?
I think they're very interesting. As you know, I have a few that I'm going to share too.
Yes.
Those are really not so cool, actually.
Mm-hmm.
I have a morbid kind of sense of humor and all that. I just love that photo, even though that's creepy.
What do you think, Kiki?
Well, I first off, it's impressive to me, like when you talk about the cleanup, when you talk about that dress, that just shows you how difficult it is to clean up blood, throwing it through the washer machine. I will say that there was a really good point brought up in the chat. Let's see, it was at 10:29. I saw somebody ask a good question I wanted to ask you guys, which was Bree Silva. She said, so how does someone leave one shoe print?
Oh, I think my presentation will explain that.
Oh, perfect.
You go ahead too, Nina, if you want. I'm not sorry.
No, go ahead, because I mean, if they have a question, I mean, they're who we're here for.
Okay, cool. When it's my turn, whenever that comes, then I'll show it.
Look at this.
I mean, that right there, the knife. I mean, of course the person thought they had all the blood off. I mean, you put that damn thing through the dishwasher, it's all gone, right?
Right.
So that knife has been through the dishwasher. The shirt had been through the washer, but yet evidence still remains. I mean, you can't really get that much more clear of an understanding of stuff that had been used in a crime scene, had been tried to be cleaned up, and after the fact, even with soap, even with everything else used to try to clean this away, you still see remnants of blood. And you wonder how people get caught, man. I mean, I would have never thought that. I would have thought myself, look, you put that through a wash or a dishwasher is going to clean everything, but it obviously it doesn't. When I watched this video, I was blown away. I was like, this is wild.
My theory on the one latent print, and I've always joked around this, and it's not a joking matter, but I said it was a one-legged man, walking through, took his prosthetic off, and anyways.
Dude,
okay,
shut up.
12.
So
Go ahead, Nina.
on this photo, if I could make a quick comment on this photo, this is very similar to the photo that was brought up in the what is her name, Darley something in Texas.
Yes.
This is very similar. Is this from that case? Because it looks very similar. She had ran that through the dishwasher and it still lit up.
Exactly. That's the reason I said it went through the dishwasher.
Oh, okay.
I didn't know if he wanted me to tell what case it was from or not.
Yeah, that's fine. No,
Darling,
there's no. You can do as you wish here. We're
I know, and I looked up. I was gonna do them by case and stuff like that, but then it's like, that's just, there's so many of them that have been busted out by the luminol and stuff like that. But the one that got me was one here in Alabama where I live. They killed the father and his wife they were going through a custody battle. And these people went through the trouble of replacing tiles, everything, and they still got busted out.
That brings up.
So you see these britches right here, right? You see on the left side, you see the handprint. You see the right hand where obviously they were trying to wipe the blood off of them or whatever it was they were trying to wipe off there. And you can still see it. So no wonder Mr. Kohberger got rid of his outfit, because you know what? It would have probably lit up just like that. And people have washed these, they've done all kinds of stuff, and still, this is what you get. So you know what this tells me? It tells me that a cleanup had it occurred, if they did indeed attempt to clean up something, whether it was the killer or whether it was somebody else, the forensic team were on it. There was no question about whether there was a cleanup, whether there was not. And in those 8 hours, they didn't do a better cleanup job than what you've seen in the body cams and the photos. I don't agree that there was a cleanup, but you know, who am I?
The Karen Reed case, if y'all are familiar with that, Karen has been fighting to get the carpet and the material from the basement, and she got the carpet. Now she's trying to get the concrete that was underneath as well to see what they can find, because it's going to still be there if it was there.
Right. I mean, these pants right here, obviously, you know, you would probably think, well, I washed these, so the blood is off of them. Look at all the splatter. Look at all the where they put their handprints and everything. Their hand. I mean, it looks like a glove was in the pocket right there or something. Right. I mean, I don't believe that people understand the forensic part of all this.
People they're talking about peroxide, and one of the studies, they actually did it with peroxide, and it still showed up.
Yeah. I mean, so what we're saying right now, the 8-hour gap, there's been so much talk that there was a cleanup. What were they cleaning up? It's the question. You know, if the crimes happened in the bedrooms, and Dylan didn't mention in the PCA anything about seeing the guy clad in black dripping in blood. She didn't mention any of that. So what would they have been cleaning up? That's the big question. Do y'all have any theories on that?
I do.
Okay, go ahead.
Well, first, we don't know everything that she stated to police. We only know what they put in the PCA. So I think that is all going to come out at trial, and will probably fill in some gaps for a lot of people. You know, like in the PCA, if you read where there's only little bits that are in quotation marks, which means it was from her. So I think they took little bits from her actual police report statement, which we've never seen, and created the PCA with that. So we don't know. She could have seen a knife. She could have seen blood. We just don't know.
Yeah, that's amazing. And there was wooden floors. So if there was, I don't know. Go ahead, Nina. This is your presentation. 12, shut up.
No.
Go ahead, Nina. Go ahead, Nina.
Shut up, too.
The wooden floors, I did talk to him about laminate floors, wooden floors, because I didn't know if they were laminate or wood. And he said that those were, especially the wood floors, is because of getting in between, the cracks, I say. I mean, you know, because wood floors don't have grout, but, you know, they do have grooves, you know, that, and see, the thing about it, especially, he said that like with carpet, that when they go in and clean a crime scene, that they literally rip the carpet up, the padding up, and the subfloor, because it goes all the way down to the wood. And so, you know, they have to cut sections, whatever sections the blood is and everything, they literally have to cut that out, and, you know, I guess construction comes in and replaces that. But in order to pass OSHA and all the guidelines and everything, if it means cutting floors, walls, or whatever out, they have to cut it out.
Have you seen the YouTube videos that crime scene cleanup companies have, where they show literal what they walk into? Yeah. Oh, it's awful.
Yeah,
and then they have to come back.
A lot of those, but I was like, yeah, those are probably too graphic.
Oh yeah, I wouldn't share them, but yeah, y'all can find them. They're on there, and then they have to come back through. You know, as you probably know, to come back through a couple times with luminol and make sure they got everything.
And you know, here's the thing about it is, I did not realize until I talked to him the dangers of the crime scene as far as airborne. You know, because when I think of the crime scene, I think of how gruesome it probably looked, you know, as far as seeing it. I didn't think of, you know, the dangers of all the airborne, you know, because he talked about E. coli, he talked about I've got a list of, I think I sent the list, I don't know, but he sent me a list of all kind of stuff that can be airborne for like weeks.
C.
I
diff
mean,
would be a big one. C. diff is commonly in our bodies, but after we pass away, those gases come out, and that can be in
right. And I talked to him about the decomp, because people talk about that they couldn't have stayed in there with the smell and all that. And he said that the biggest misperception that people have is that that's immediate, and that that is not an always thing of the bowels and stuff. It does do that, but it doesn't have to do that. But he said that the smell and stuff like that wouldn't hit somebody immediately. That it wouldn't just immediately walk through the house. And he said, especially if the bedroom doors were shut.
Well, we found my daddy after he'd been gone he passed away. We kind of ascertained that it was Saturday afternoon, and we found him Sunday evening. So it was a little over 24 hours. There was no smell.
Well, and I'm not trying, like I said, and when I was doing this, and even doing the interview next week, I hope that it can answer, if nothing else, it can answer questions for people. I'm not trying to debunk anybody, because I want everybody to understand right now, when it comes to guilt or innocence, I'm not about that. I'm about the research, the facts, understanding, and stuff like that, because I am not at all arrogant enough to say I sat on my couch in Alabama and solved the Idaho 4 case. I can't do that or even attempt to say, anything like that. But, I think we all just want some kind of understanding.
You're so right on that, Nina. I was doing a case and I saw a sink like this.
So think about what you just said. We all just want some understanding. That's a huge statement right there. Because I believe that's what, if people are in this for the right reason, almost 4 years later, I don't understand how you're not getting understanding for a lot of people, especially new people that are coming into the case, how they're not understanding some of the stuff that's already been presented. But that's neither here nor there. Look at this sink. Early on in this case, there was rumors that the killer washed off some of the blood in the sink and even stole one of the towels from the second floor bathroom. It's never been revealed in any document whatsoever, but somewhere along the way that got presented as a theory that the killer washed the knife off in the sink on the second floor and stole a towel. So if he did, you don't believe that when they did that to the sink, even though we don't see the amido black or the luminol or any of that stuff in some of the crime photos, you think they're going to show us a lot of the crime photos after they've investigated it? What's the point? You're going to show the before, and then you're going to use the after to identify evidence that you found that you can't see with the naked eye. So this is after. This is after they went through there and they found all this remnants of whatever this crime scene is, that somebody tried to wash away evidence. So in the 8-hour time, if somebody would have washed away evidence from the second floor bathroom, stay with me here for a second, okay? Let's say that he was washing the knife off based on whatever theory that was, wherever it came from. and he dried it off. What usually happens when you wash something? Are you clean? Are you not splashing water that you don't realize everywhere? Do you not splash water from the sink to the floor to the back of the toilet, wherever? And God forbid he used one of the towels to wipe it off. You don't believe that some of the water could have been slung across certain walls or anything like that? I mean, I don't believe he did that, but, it was an early theory, and I don't know where they came up with it, but if that did happen, I could see how blood transfer could have been all over different variations from the second floor bathroom all the way through the living room if he's wiping off the knife. I didn't realize the second floor bathroom was as big as it is until we did the walkthrough through the house and all that stuff. But yeah, I don't believe he wiped off the knife or cleaned anything in the sink, because if so, then we would have had photos that showed it. I believe that the individual tried to be as crafty as he could, but he still made a lot of mistakes. Why? Because this was his first crime. How do you expect somebody to be perfect on their first crime if they've never done it before? You could study everything you want. I studied criminal justice. I was nowhere near a doctorate level, but I can tell you this. There's no way that I could go out and commit a crime without emotionally being invested in everything I did. As I watched an interview one time, the lady said, there's no way that you could be so calm to walk into a home, no matter how you planned it, and commit the crime and not make a mistake. Everybody makes mistakes. So to say that just because he was in school for all these things made him a level up and that he committed a perfect crime because there's so much doubt about it. Review your stance on that. Review your stance on that. Let's continue going.
This where they had lit it up with luminol like this. And it got me thinking about the Idaho 4 where there was that bathroom on the second floor. I wonder if the perpetrator, if they did wash their hands, because there was theories about that early on, that he washed his hands, he stole a towel, all this kind of stuff.
Oh, wow.
If they sprayed luminol after the fact, they would have been able to see all this. If there was blood in the sink on the sink, oh my gosh, 12.
Well, at least I'm consistent
on the little spigot area.
The faucet.
Yeah, that. Anyways, what do y'all think about that?
Oh yeah, I think it's entirely possible. That he might have grabbed something, an item of clothing or a towel or something to stick that knife in to leave. Whoever it was, I'm not saying definitively that I'm not convicting anybody. I'm just saying who the perpetrator could have easily grabbed something,
Right.
Especially if he reached around and couldn't find that sheath and he's like, oh crap,
Especially out of his apartment, if he cleaned up there.
Yeah.
If he didn't clean up there, if he went to the WSU and there's a shower there or there's a bathroom there that he used to clean up. I mean, he could have went to a roadside truck stop and cleaned up. Excuse me?
I would go to a car wash and use one of those pressure washers.
On yourself? Like,
yes.
Oh,
okay.
that would draw any attention to yourself.
No, I mean, you go out there and act like you're washing your car and, sorry, soaked myself. I mean, at 4 o'clock in the morning, who else is out washing their car?
true. Very true.
You know, when you were
icy cold night though. I don't know.
Can y'all hear me better? They said my voice is really low. I don't know. Can you hear me now?
I hear you fine.
Yeah, fine here.
Okay. Yeah, that's an awful amount of blood right there. That looks like a car wash.
No, the bathtub one is from a dismemberment.
Okay. Kiki, any comments?
Yeah, I have a couple of reactions, if you guys don't mind. I wrote a few things down while Nina and Crime Sleuthie were talking. So the first one I was thinking is, if you guys don't mind, the first one I was thinking is, like, I totally am not coming down on Dylan. We need to wait until we hear everything before we surmise what happened. But a couple things I will point out that just make the mystery a little bit deepened is it's not just that she was scared of something that could possibly have been a frat fight. There were a couple other indications. For instance, one of the times she opened the door was because she heard Xana crying. And that's the second time is when they heard somebody come back and say to the effect of, I'm here to help, or there's someone here along those lines. Putting aside that noises were captured at 4:17 that sounded like a body being slammed against the door or wall, the dog barking, you know, we have to think there was a lot going on in there if it can be captured in an outdoor camera 50 feet away. And Xana was crying. And so when I think frat fight, I still think a female in distress crying. And then the other thing is when we say, and this isn't to contradict you, Crime Sleuthing, I'm just kind of building on what you're saying. When we're talking about the PCA leaves out anything about blood or leaves anything about the perpetrator carrying a knife or maybe having blood on him, we have to imagine he doesn't. Because if she had seen a knife or blood, I mean, she would have had to call 911, or we'd have deeper questions about her not calling 911. That was another thing I was thinking. And again, I'm just building off what you guys are saying. And then
I agree.
Oh, I'm sorry. What?
Oh, I just said I agree.
Thank you. And then the other thing that really, okay, so you guys, and again, I'm not coming down on Dylan and Bethany, but this is a question in my mind. Is like, when you call a fraternity brother over because you're scared, and I understand it might have been Hunter, and it might have been not calling the fraternity. It might have just been calling Hunter because he was close to the house, had an ex-girlfriend, or had a girlfriend who was an ex-roommate at the house, or actually, I think she might have been on the lease. Either way, in that moment when you're scared, you call the fraternity brother. This is the part that gets to me. They're big sisters, like quite literally and metaphorically. Like it was their fraternity big sister. They played that role. And even to the point where some of them were so close, they called Kaylee a second mom. It's interesting. I mean, it perplexes me when I think about it, because they called Hunter but not Kaylee. And I know there's probably an explanation. Like I feel like I know where you're going to go with this. You're going to say, well, they text Kaylee and she didn't answer. And I don't know, but I'm just putting these questions out there because they're the ones that came for me. And then I saw Mittens for Kitten left something at 12:40 at 10:29. Hold on. He asked a question that I had too. She asked a question I had too. 1 second. Let me just pull it right up. It'll only take me 1 second. So it was Bree actually at 10:29. So how does someone, oh, I'm sorry, that's all I got. Anyway, these are a couple.
Those are great questions, right? Because we're doing it for the tube. Those are great questions. But if you were gonna ask an investigator or a forensic person, when they're investigating a crime, if you're going to ask them, do any of that stuff matter in the grand scheme of things? That's when you really differentiate fact from our questions, if that makes sense. And I'm not throwing shade on anything that anybody's saying tonight. I'm just saying, like, whenever you're going into a house and you're investigating blood, semen, hair follicles, fibers, all this stuff. I know people find it very suspicious that Dylan called Hunter, right? Called Emily. They called these people over. We may never know unless Dylan speaks on the reasoning behind that. We may never know that. And that is an inquisitive question that for a lot of people that needs to be answered, because what made her call another person her own age rather than 911? Because if you look at the factual information after this video was made, we got the 911 call. We heard what supposedly went down. They were going upstairs. They were looking. Hunter went into the room, told them to get out. Even then, nobody called 911 immediately. They were told, I believe, somebody grabbed one of the roommates' phone and called 911. It wasn't one of the roommates that called 911. I don't believe. I'm speaking and I'm thinking that's not true. That's not right, because I haven't thought about this case in long. It's in intervals that I think about it. I don't have all the hours memorized like people do. I don't have every person's name in Moscow memorized. I don't have every street, every person, every officer, every investigator's name. I don't have all that memorized, because when you're looking at an investigation, and I've always said this before, and you can call me full of crap, the investigation was in the home. That's where the murders took place. The murders didn't take place out front. The murders didn't take place in the backyard. The murders didn't take place on Taylor Street. The murders didn't take place at the grub truck, by the fire hydrant. All that stuff. No matter all the little pieces of information that we've heard along the way, the murders took place in the home. More specifically, in one of the bedrooms on the second floor, and in one of the bedrooms on the third floor. So when you're narrowing down something to that extent, when you're investigating something, you're asking yourself, okay, well, how and what happened here? And then you try to get the timeline correct. That's why you do interviews. That's why you're asking all these questions. All this luminol and all this other stuff goes way beyond the first initial response. And as you heard me, if you looked at the video last night, you heard me say, I don't believe this was a pristine investigation, because I never believed that. Because people are fallible. We make mistakes. It doesn't matter who you are. People do make mistakes, but does the reason that you made a mistake automatically imply that you did it maliciously? That you're trying to hide something, that you're trying to make a theory of that matches whatever? Not always. So I've always wondered, and I hope that I get to talk to Swan one day on panel. I hope I get to talk to Nina on panel again about this and crime sleuthing. because I'd like to see if their responses have changed over everything that has been released since. And they can tell me, well, we really haven't followed it since. Okay, well, I haven't either. Just bits and pieces, right? But I'd like to know if their initial responses would have changed based on what we know now. Because we've been prevalent to the gag order being lifted, the multitude of photos, laboratory results, this and that and the other. All the interviews that people did, the body cams, all that stuff, formalities. What really did we expect to hear in an interview? Did we want to hear that the person sounded remorseful? Did we want to hear that the person messed up and let something slip that nobody told us about? What would have been the purpose of all that FOIA money and the request and the stuff that people still are doing at this point, other than for their own curiosity, because at this point, when we were talking on this panel, we didn't have all that information. So all these questions are viable. But at the same time, at one particular point, we have to take out the surviving roommates out of the equation. They're no longer a part of this crime scene. The moment you interview them, they're out of the equation. All the people that live down the street, around the corner, gathered, huddled up, all the relatives, all these people, once they're interviewed, they're out of the equation. The focus is on the murder scene. What evidence are you going to gather from this scene? Because you're trying to catch a killer. You're trying to find the patterns of this murder scene. And had they not found the sheath, what else would they have found that would have connected Bryan C. Kohberger to this crime? Many people say nothing. But that's when you narrowly don't want it to be him. Because of what reason? What reason is it that you don't want it to be Bryan? Because if all the information, all the Celebrite stuff, all the purchase histories, everything that we've been prevalent to, you still don't want it to be him. You have to ask yourself, what is your reasoning behind that? Let me see what you said. People think I'm crazy for dwelling on the audio, but you would be shocked with what is heard with professional headphones. I don't know which audio you're talking about, but it's inquisitive nonetheless. Let me continue to play this. But I want you to believe that everything we're talking about is the crime scene. Inside the house, not in the backyard. People get on their high horse and they talk about, you could hear this at 11, 12. You could see these people doing this. You could see these people driving off. You could see this vehicle driving off. And then you tell, people say, well, you're closed-minded because you aren't able to see what we see. Or you're closed-minded because you won't hear what we hear. That doesn't mean I'm closed-minded. I'm looking at this through a different lens than you are. You're looking at this as connect the dots to get to a different outcome. I'm looking at this as, okay, we're looking at these photos. Well, who did this? How did they do this? What happened to enable them to do this? And where did they go? You know what I mean? So I'm not getting on my soapbox here. I'm really not. Because you can't change somebody who has their mind made up. You can't. And you can debunk and you can talk and you can say everything you want to say. But one thing I know, being a therapist, that people are not going to change unless they're ready to change. And unfortunately, we will be stuck with this case until something bigger, more grotesque, and more questionable happens. And that's the unfortunate about crime, is that it's gonna take something bigger, more grotesque than this to sway people's attention away from this. But let's go ahead and go on.
Thoughts that came to me. I just want to toss it to you guys. Sorry about that.
Those were some good thoughts. Good thoughts. Anybody have anything else to add to that?
As far as being called, my thing has always been that she called Hunter, but then I also read that Hunter and Ethan was supposed to either go work out or they were supposed to do something that morning, and that it's possible that Hunter showed up at the house trying to find out where Ethan was. So I can't say that she called Hunter, but I do know that Hunter showed up at the house, and I can say I know that, but it's based on a statement from Stacy Chapin, because she actually, in one statement, she talked about the girls, and in another statement, she actually thanked Hunter for not letting Hunter and Maisie see Ethan. So that's the only reason that when I say I know is because, it's from statements from Stacy Chapin. And, if there's one thing you know about Stacy Chapin, she's not one to just get out there and run her mouth.
Right. And Mitten says, I think it was a study group. Like backing up what
Yes, I'd heard the same thing, that a girl was supposed to go study with Hunter, and Hunter had been called over to the house because of the situation with his brother. I think that's what I heard on the...
I mean, if you think about it, everybody wants to talk about, they called all their friends before they called Ellie. They called all their friends, Okay, so if Hunter the friend, not Hunter the brother, if Hunter the friend lives over there at the frat house or whatever, what if he's just like, man, I got to go up there and see where Ethan is. He had that big fight last night. Now nobody's heard from him. I'm concerned, blah, 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 So it may not have been the girls playing telephone. You got to consider how close those houses and everything really are. I mean, if something's going on, then they just start walking over there. Hey, let's go see what's going on over there. Or they start talking to each other. Maybe it was the students playing the game telephone or gossip or whatever, instead of Dylan and Bethany. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah, I have a question for you guys. All these photos make me wonder, like, if we, how we chop meat and sometimes blood gets on the counter and we wipe it away with some cleaning supplies. I wonder if, like, we took a black light or something, if it'd be able to illuminate all, like, this place right here. Look at that white sheet. You can't see anything on there.
Yeah.
And then under the black light with the spray of luminol and amino black, like, it had just lit up with blood.
Oh, y'all want to hear something gross?
Sure.
He's like, great reaction. Black light won't show blood, but it will show other stuff. So my teenager recently got well that no well I'm talking about my little girl. No, there's not gonna be none of that in her room, but or her bathroom. But she recently got a black light for her posters, and she wanted to put one in her bathroom too, just for fun. And she put a couple of cute things in her little bathroom too. And she put a black light in there, and she took that sucker out the same night. And because she called me in there, and she was like, "Mom, you have to see this." And everywhere where she had spit in the sink, brushing her teeth, and the toothpaste, where it looked clean, but with the black light and the light off, it just lit up with all of that. Just it was gross. It was all over the sink, and she's like, "I do not want that in here."
Yeah. Being a young guy, you can't have a black light in your room whenever you're a young guy either.
Well, yeah.
Hey, Gage, I sent you a screenshot of a statement from Whitcomb 911. Can you put that up?
Sure.
Because people are talking about the unconscious call.
Okay, let me show the rest of these pictures, and then I'll do that. That way they can see some of this. This is
that
a tire.
Right there, they put through one of those car washes.
And even after the car wash.
That car.
Wow. I mean, all this stuff just makes you wonder. It gives you a different perspective, at least for myself, that you could have the cleanest intention, and you're still going to be found out if people have the correct chemicals and lighting to be able to find things that you can't see anymore. Because I don't think this individual took the time to be like, okay, let me bust out my black light to see if I got everything. Do y'all?
No. He, as a forensics student, he already had his PhD, right? I think he could have had a mobile, because they do have them, battery pack, with them. He could have owned one of those for his car. You know what I mean? But I don't think he would have taken it to the crime scene.
Which one is it, Nina?
It's the at the top of it. It says Whitcomb 911, and it is
19 or 20.
Right.
Sure.
So okay, so I'm going to share my screen. There you go.
Okay, I'm going to stop it right here because I'm going to come back and probably do a part 2, but I just wanted to show the blood portion of it because to me that is important, not because I want to show one directive or one thing versus the other. But it's imperative that you understand us in other crimes that have not even been committed yet. Because if we don't learn from the past, then we're going to repeat the same mistakes in the future. And that is just a given. That's just a given. And if we're looking at this kind of stuff to learn from prior crimes, we definitely want to learn. What made this individual do this? How was he able to do this? Even if you don't believe he did it. We have plenty of examples of other killers that have gotten away from their crimes to later to be caught, okay? So it's not saying that there is a perfect crime, because ultimately all of them were captured. So what did that say about their mistakes? One thing I heard in that video was about the frat fight. Okay, let's say, just for the sake of conversational value, let's say there was a fight. Let's say Ethan was injured. You don't believe the police went and investigated who potentially fought and if they had any kind of markings on them? You don't believe that all the frat boys were lined up just like the people were lined up? That's to eliminate them from any involvement? You don't believe there were search warrants for the frat house? Especially if that was supposedly the scene of the beginning of everything, if that was true. As an investigator, you don't pick and choose where you're going to search for evidence. You know what I mean? You don't get to pick and choose. Well, I'm going to search here, but I'm not going to search here. And then you say, well, Gage, then how come that black object that looked like Maddie's coat on the hydrant was picked up and then placed back down? How come that wasn't bagged for evidence? I wish I knew that answer. But based on the preponderance of evidence, I believe that it was too far away from the crime scene to actually have any significance, and they probably, at that point, have already found the black jacket. That's the only thing that I can think of. They didn't swab it. They didn't spray it for luminol, none of that. You're right. But just because we don't know why they didn't do it doesn't mean that they did a job to cover something up. I mean, that's a huge accusation when you believe that people that have sworn to serve and protect, and I do understand that there's some bad apples in every line of business. But to assume that everybody is out to do the wrong thing, that's quite bold. You know what I mean? That's quite bold. That's bold to assume that there was such a corruption in this case to make a killer. You know, I believe that Netflix series, To Make a Murderer, it diluted a lot of people's minds. I suggest that you go back and watch that series now that you know about this case, because will you see the same type of things that you saw the first time around? And we still don't know that case. Has anybody really ever gotten all the paperwork and all the investigative body cams and all that stuff about that case to really make a definitive understanding on whether Stephen was guilty or not? I don't know if y'all believe he was guilty or not. Stephen Avery. I don't know if y'all believe he was guilty or not. They did plant a lot of seeds of doubt in that documentary for sure. And I believe that's what happened in this case too. There was so much that we didn't know, but we were getting information from all over the place, so people were just connecting the dots, trying to make it make sense for them. And whatever their purpose was, and whatever the purpose is still, they're still trying to make it make sense even 4 years later. But one thing I do understand is when you're researching something, at a particular point, if you have a hypothesis and that theory doesn't add up, you go with the theory that does work. Whether it's true or whether it's not, you let your bias just go with what you can prove. You know what I mean? It's like saying, well, I think that this happened. Well, you think or you know? Yeah, yes, what was he burning? Remember, why was the victim's car covered with things? Yeah, that's an interesting case. And I started covering that again in some of my lives in my library that you might go check out. I believe that that case created a lot more doubt regarding the police because it did plant the seed of doubt that since he was acquitted of rape, that they tried to frame him because he sued them and they didn't want to pay him. So therefore, the police killed the girl, parked the vehicle on his junkyard, planted his blood all over the car, and so on and so on and so on. But you ask yourself in this case, if you wanted to plant evidence, why would you do it at the house? That's the dumbest thing you could ever think of. If I was going to frame Bryan, I would have got some of the victim's blood. I would have waited till he went into his house, and then I would have planted the evidence all over his car. I would have made it where the evidence was not seen by him. Hell, I would have broke into his house and planted evidence all over his home. Stuff that he didn't even know was there. Isn't that how you plant stuff? You're not going to plant a sheath under a dead person's body and then say, well, yeah, this is how I'm going to frame you. That is the dumbest thing. Yeah, that car was crucial evidence in that case, just like with the OJ case. But don't you agree, if you're going to plant evidence, why would you plant it at the house where the murder occurred? You're going to plant evidence to point at being one person who you want it to be. Why not go to his office and put one of the deceased IDs in his drawer after he's already gone to Christmas break? Once he leaves his apartment, go smear some victim blood on his doorknob. If you really want to plant evidence, that's how you do it, right? You don't put a sheath under a blanket under a deceased person's body and say, well, this is how we were trying to plant it. And we're only going to put a little bit of evidence under a button snap. Skin cells, mind you. Not blood, skin cells. So, that's what I'm saying as far as some of these theories or hypotheses that people have, is they don't think them through. It sounds great when you're trying to pitch a theory to people or hypothesis. It sounds great because the bigger the lie, the more people will believe it. Because it's right there in front of their face. They don't have to go looking for facts. You're just presenting it to them. And there's multitudes of people that do this day in, day out. And for whatever reason they do it, obviously they do it because they do it. Who am I to claim that they have an ulterior motive or whatever? Because honestly, I've never been in this for justice for the poor. I haven't. And that might sound shitty, but you know what? I didn't know them. Do I feel bad that it happened to all those people? Yes. Do I feel bad for the families? Of course. I've reached out to some of them, offered my condolences, checked on the families. But to sit here and lie to you and say that I've covered this case because I care more about their justice than what eventually happened, that'd be a lie. Because, to be honest, those families will never recover those feelings of grief and hurt and pain that happened to their loved ones. They won't. You know, Kohberger could come out tomorrow and write a book and say, this is why I did it, and this is how I did it. It'll never answer those deep-rooted questions. Why my child? Why that house? You know? Why my child? Because you can't answer that question. Because I believe he doesn't even know why. People can speculate and say he was jealous, and, you know, we listened to one particular family, and I'm not down talking them, but maybe they should have not been talking as loudly either, because all I did is just give people ammunition to use to their advantage. You know? Or maybe they should have spoken a little clearer on their intent and not tried to, you know, hide their words. Say what you mean. Just say it. You've already opened your mouth. Just say what you mean. Because in reality, there's going to be more killers that stalk females that they don't know. They might be stalking them through the internet. They might be stalking them through looking across the student union. They might be parked across the highway from their home. The fact of the matter is we never know what the intent was, what the motive was. Because all the speculation under the planet, even professionals have said they believe this was this and they believe that this was that. Some of it I agree with, some of it I don't. But I can tell you this, when it comes to somebody murdering somebody that you don't even know, that is a very sick individual. Did it really matter that he didn't know them? But Gage, you still can't prove it was him. Okay. Well, I know one thing for certain that I can prove is he's in prison right now. And he's the one that I saw on TV that stood up and said he did it. I can't prove that. All the other BS that goes along with that, that's left up to everybody on the internet and whoever wants to argue about that. But the fact of the matter is, there are evil people in this world. No matter how educated they are, no matter how insignificant or significant they are, or cunning, or charming, or any of this stuff, they all have something in common. They killed, and they got caught for whatever reason. And they're locked up forever. All the wishing and pleading and begging and all this stuff that people do, if only you put that much energy in your communities, how much better might your community be where you wouldn't have to worry about other people's business. You would worry about your own. You say, Gage, well, what do you do? You know what I do every day? I wake up, I go to work, and I try to make a difference in every child that goes before my desk. Every person I cross, I try to make a difference by being kind. Giving people hope that there is something better in this cruel world than just to be evil and believe that nobody can be trusted and nobody is good. Because when we get to that point, then we are beyond ever going back. But that's what I believe in. I believe that there is hope for humanity. I believe that we can make a difference if we try to change our own home rather than trying to change something that we have no real bearing on changing. You know, I've been an ass on this platform. I really have. I'm not going to get on here and claim to be a saint because I've said stuff to people and they've said stuff back. But at the same time, you know what? I was so deep into this case. I don't even know how I got that deep. But I can tell you now, looking back on everything, I wish I never would have started even talking about it. I wish I would have picked another case to utilize, to learn criminal justice procedures that I was learning along the way. Because I can't unsee and unlearn what I've learned. You know, it's like telling me, look, you know, there's only bad people in the world. Well, how would I be a therapist for this long if I didn't believe that people could change, if only just one? It's not about changing the whole world, it's about changing the perception in front of you. If you don't believe people can change and you believe everybody's up to no good, well, how are you ever going to have a positive life? You know what I mean? The kids break the law all the time. The kids I work with, they break the law, they break their curfews, they break whatever it is that they're supposed to be doing. I get calls from parents all the time telling me what their kids are doing or not doing. I have to address something in the morning. This kid's doing well, and I got to address what he's not doing correctly. Could I ignore it? Of course I could. Could I make excuses for him? Of course I could. But what benefit would that do for him in the long run? Because if you band-aid somebody's behavior, what you're doing is just crippling them in the long run. You're making it easier for them to play victim and to blame this or that and the other because that is why and how they were created. I believe that there's good in everybody. It just takes a little longer to find it most of the time. I don't believe Bryan Kohberger is a good man. Not because I'm biased, not because I've made that decision based on anything other than what I've seen in these photos, what I've seen in the evidence that we've been shown. If you get beyond all the distractions and you get to that meat and potatoes of it and you start from scratch and you deduct all these people as the police did, then you really would truly understand that this is how the case went. And I said this from the very beginning. I told people from the very beginning, it was a very short time frame of crime. It was a very short crime. So therefore, all the evidence is not going to be substantial because people were screaming, there's no evidence, there's no evidence, there's no evidence. Okay. How can there be no evidence? Just because you don't see it does not mean that there isn't evidence. And now, years later, we find out that there was more evidence than we believed that there was. But still, nobody wants to see that. They want to see what they believe over these years, and that's totally fine. I just hope that the next crime that happens that is very earth-shaking, because Nancy Guthrie didn't really shake a lot of people. It shook some people. The guy that just got killed, the black guy that just got killed, that went with his friends to a party at this lake, and they showed up without him. That's not going to shake anybody up. People are used to that. It's going to take something worse than we've ever seen to really wake people's eyes up. Wake them up to see that evil is evil. And without getting biblical or religious, I'm going to tell you what's the biggest lie that's ever been told. The biggest lie that's ever been told is you can have everything you want in life. That's the biggest lie. People spend a whole life chasing that lie. And it's not always the people fighting against you that you have to worry about. It's the people that are agreeing with you that you have to worry about. The people that take no stances, that are okay with just everything going the way it is, that have no kind of boundaries or any kind of pushback on anything. Those are the people that you should worry about. If I know one thing, and I know it well, is I've worked with criminal-minded people for 17 years plus. And I can tell you this, and I'll continue to tell you this. People don't change unless they want to. And the fact that Bryan started off as a drug addict and stealing and having all those inadequacies and everything else, that's what drew me into this case. Because I could relate to that. And I wanted to see, okay, well, how did this progress? Those are the missing pieces that I want to see. How did he get from that point to being in prison for life? How I understand how he got there. I want to see the pieces that the whole world doesn't know about. I want to see those pieces. How did Bryan get clean, and how was he living while he was in Pullman, Washington? Was he smoking weed? Was he drinking? We knew he was going to a place in Pennsylvania, supposedly, to flirt or look at waitresses and whatever. Whether that was true or whether that was perception, one or the other happened, right? So what was Bryan doing? Because we've all known a Bryan Kohberger. You can't act like Bryan is so unique that we all haven't met one in our lifetime, because we have. I've met countless Bryan Kohbergers. I see Bryan Kohberger all over the internet. I see Bryan Kohberger in these platforms. I see Bryan Kohberger all over the YouTube true crime community. Bryan Kohberger is all over this community. Not because they're fighting for him. He's here because people think just like him. You know what I mean? It's true we may never know the truth. And you know the reality is, it's really none of our business at this point. It really isn't. Tonight's video was shown because I wanted to show the blood evidence part of it. We're talking that case because that's what we were talking about that night. But the blood evidence portion will carry on in other cases. So when people say, I can't see it, was there a cleanup in that case too? You can't carry the same definitive actions every case you go just because you don't want to believe somebody's ever guilty of what they do wrong. There's a word for those type of people, and they're called victim stancers. They claim to be the victim of society's wrong, so therefore everything they view as in life, they view it through a lens in which they can portray themselves to be the victim of circumstance rather than reality. And there's another one that's called view self as a good person, meaning that they don't ever see any wrong in anything that they do and anything that they say. And everything is everybody else's fault. Those are called thinking errors. But I'm getting tired and I have to go to my day job in less than 6 hours. I just thought I'd get on here and spend a little time with you guys on StreamYard because I haven't been on this since the other night with Cherie. She did a marvelous job, by the way. And thank you guys for being here in the chat. Wherever you might be watching this, whether it be X, whether it be Facebook, or whether it be YouTube. If you enjoyed any of the presentation, go hit a like. This video does need to be shown out there, not because of the case we're covering, but because of the knowledge of the presenters that we're talking on this panel tonight. A lot of knowledge. And I will get to Crime Sleuth's part. I'm not going to leave her out because she's very knowledgeable as well. And whether you like any of us or whether you like only one of us, that tells a lot about you. What did anybody ever do to you as a presenter or a creator on YouTube to make you turn your back on everybody associated with them? But yet, people jump around panels like they're changing friend groups. We're all just human beings. None of us without flaws. And if you believe that you don't have any flaws and you're better than anybody else, go grab your bag of rocks and start throwing. That's all I got for tonight. Y'all have a wonderful evening. And I think I'm going to take some time off. Vacation's next week, so I think I'm just going to take some time off and just focus on the radio and my counseling business. By the way, if y'all know anybody that in Texas area that wants telehealth services, I am a licensed therapist, so hit me up if you know anybody that needs services. I'm willing to work with them. Thank you so much. Y'all have an awesome night. Be safe out there.